Yo, JD here, Limitless, and as you can see, back with some league racing action here today, and we arrive at TSRL Brazil. Last race, we managed to clinch this championship 2 years in a row now. We have won this, and it was a very, very tough season. Started off very well, but then a lot of up and downs along the way. But the key thing was the consistency. Consistency trumps most things, in my opinion, and we were just able to do that. We were able to outscore our opponents most of the time, to be honest. Every time I had a new challenger for second place, I kept on outscoring him. And now we arrive here having a bit of fun, but you can see how competitive this is. It's less than 2 tenths from first to last in Q1, and TSRL offers a very different challenge because we have the full qualifying format here. Really have to be careful with the amount of tyres you can use, because obviously in the short qualifying format you really can just go ham with the tyres, whereas here you really have to make sure you get the laps in at the right time, otherwise you're not going to have any tyres for the Q3 or for the race either when you need it the most. So managed to get through that Q1. This is actually one of the first races I did on the new rig setup. You can see a very different camera setup, a different seat, different chassis, cockpit. So really still in the early stages of getting used to this, but feels quite good at this moment in time. And going across the line, it's a 1.6.299, which I'm still going to say is a 0.2 just to make myself feel better. But you can see again, the top 7, top 8, less than a tenth of a second. That is just absolute madness. Tira Martin actually going out. So if anyone says this league isn't competitive, it really is. And everyone, particularly towards the end of the game, is really stepping up their performances right now, especially in the qualifying. You can see on our last lap in Q3, we decided to actually abandon it halfway or 2/3 of the way round because I didn't think it was good enough. The good thing at Brazil is that you can actually go for 2 laps on the same tyre relatively easily, mainly because of the fuel and how the ERS works. So we had to abandon that. Now we're going for another lap, so it's going to be our second lap on these tyres, which, as I said, it doesn't provide too much of a difference, but not ideal. You'd rather get it done on the first lap. So here we go, currently in P9 with a 1.6.4, which is not exactly bad in itself. So coming off this first couple of corners, going a bit green here. As I mentioned, the championship has already wrapped up, so I didn't really prep as much as I would do normally for a TSRL race. Normally I do at least a day's prep beforehand, but this time, since the championship was done, I was really just looking to get experience on the new rig and just to have a bit more fun, a bit more relaxing time than usual. So I wasn't really too bothered about the overall result. But once you're within it, of course, the competitive instinct takes over and you want to perform at the absolute best. So not quite as good as the previous lap here, but coming off this last corner, I knew I could make up a little bit of time, and we definitely do. We're gaining quite a bit of time now. I'd say on the previous lap we were almost about a tenth faster than this, almost up to a tenth faster than this. So going across the line, let's see where this is going to be. Running out of ERS as I cross the line, which you can see that was dropping my delta at the end, puts me P7 with a 6.3. That's pretty nuts, actually, to be honest. That is absolutely nuts. Pole was a 6.1. Oates, Smasher, OMG, it's Joe back in here. So it's very, very close here. So starting P8 in the end, ahead of my championship rival, my championship rival, LCR Leopard, who did a fantastic season. He is a brilliant competitor to go against. So I really enjoyed that. I'm really looking forward to the next one as well. Jacob B starting just ahead of me in P6 with Smasher in P7. But on the formation lap, Leopard just goes into the back of me, and then that puts us back on the grid, which means our tyres aren't going to be up to optimal temperature. So not an ideal start, but again, not really too bothered because the championship is done. As we've got 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights here for the penultimate race in this championship, trying to get a good start, starting on the soft compound tyres because we've got to Q3. And I think you can see the effect of having those slightly colder tyres. You can see me and Leopard both didn't get a good getaway here. And I see so many people in the comments. This is actually going to be a new live stream feature I'm going to be doing. So many people who like the backseat drive. That's not a disrespectful term. Hopefully it's not. Like to say, oh, you should do this, you should do that. To be honest, a lot of the start is really down to your connection to the host. Yeah, and bad start because of our tyres. If you can use a different RPM, there is no such thing as a perfect one, in my opinion. Normally, I think 12,800, 900 is the best RPM to start with. That's what you see most drivers start with as well. I like to start on standard, just reduces the wheel spin. Sometimes I get insane starts, like at Mexico last time on the medium tyre. I actually got a better start than people on the softs ahead of me. So I feel it's really down to connection most of the time here. But you can see on this occasion, as there is a massive instant up ahead, 2 cars have gone off here. Jacob B and now being swallowed up by a Red Bull. And who is that next to me in the Ferrari Raceway? And HX4K, we've actually lost 3 positions. Well, we gained 2 and then we lost 3. So we're back to P9. Now we lost about 1 position in the end here. Go down the inside of the Red Bull, deciding for them to have this corner. So not ideal. And there could be a chance of a safety car as Dominic has gone off here, or whoever that was, Raceway. And the safety car has now, in fact, come out here. And this is interesting because if I was in the race for the title, I would just copy what Leopard is doing. But I thought to myself, you know what? And you're about to hear me say what I'm thinking right now.
Do I go for hards? Can they go that long?
I thought, you know what? Let's just try something completely different because we have nothing to lose. We've already done the business, what we needed to do. And it would just be a bit of fun to see if this strategy can actually work. Because in some unlikely scenarios, it really can pay off big time. So the others continue. I decide to go into the pits here. And I'm going to put on the set hard tyres for the end of this race. So I'm hoping not to make another pit stop because I'm usually quite good at managing the tyres, the temps and everything as well. So I thought, you know what? Let's just do this. Let's just do this for a bit of fun. Try something completely different because ultimately I felt quite good at my pace in the race, but realistically with the grid of how competitive it is and just the nature of this game, it's very, very hard to overtake. It would have been very hard for me to go from like P8 to P1 by just forcing myself past people because you can only use so much ERS and there's such a thing called the slipstream train, which is a big problem on these games. So I decided to do this. Square behind me actually went the next lap, so he has a 1 lap fresher hard than me. As we're going through the restart now, I'm trying not to overtake Smasher and Florian because you would usually get a penalty. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, so I really didn't want to take that risk. So we're just trying to fight him into someone using a bit of the ERS, which I really didn't want to do. And now it's just a case of trying to stick to these guys on the mediums up ahead, but then also trying to conserve my tyres as much as possible. So we're going to ride on board for quite a lot of raw laps this race because there's a lot of very interesting things that go on. And at the moment you can see so many people, BGG Pancakes, fighting tooth and nail with my teammate actually, in fact, here. So these guys are busy squabbling away, which is kind of ideal, but kind of not for me as well. As I was thinking about going down the inside of the line, it's just really testing to see of what kind of driver he is, if he's going to turn in or if he's going to give space. And it looks like he actually was probably willing to give a little bit of space there. So this helps me because it allows me to stay within the DRS zone, but also doesn't because the leaders are going to be pulling a bit more of a gap. So I want to try and be as close to the leaders as possible for when they pit, so they come out further behind. But I don't want to wear out my tyres as well. So you need to find really a good balance. So I'm just really hoping that this battle up ahead of me really settles down and they can start dragging me along the pace, because at the moment these medium tyres should be faster than the hards. But I was actually feeling really good at this stage of the race. I also had AMS Square behind me, who I mentioned. He's on the lap fresher hards, which at this stage of the race are not really going to be making too much of a difference. So if I feel faster than my raw pace, then I should be able to maybe potentially pull away if I did have a bit more pace. But he's probably going to keep me quite close for company throughout the remainder of this race as well. So as my teammate is battling with the Renault quite aggressively here, so he really wants to get a move on. And they really do need to, because if they want to be in a good position for the final stint, they really need to have that track position that they need. So I'm going to be behind Linux, and hopefully things have started to gradually settle down as Oates does a 9.3. Let's see what the kind of lap times we're doing. We're doing an 11.3, so we've lost 2 seconds on that lap. So again, that's why I really want this train to settle down now, and we can actually start getting some good laps on the board. So moving on here, you'll be able to see by the lap time, moving on to lap 8 here, we have done a 10.6, so still not quite the pace of the leaders, but at this stage the soft tyres are going to be slowly diminishing, as I think we do have some people who have come into pits, but I actually decided to overtake the Renault, who again leaves me a lot of space. So sometimes it's good for going for a little bit of a move just to see how much track position they're going to give you, and he was very, very fair on this occasion. So next objective is to try and catch my teammate,
Quite good for a while.
but you can see the mediums are still pretty decent. You see my tyre wear is actually fairly high here. Some people have pitted, so we are looking probably to be a net P1 after everyone has pitted so far. You can see a lot more people have pitted. This is when the majority of people will be pitting in the next couple of laps here, and you can see by the lap time we're doing a high 9, which is actually very, very consistent. And you can see we've actually broken away from AMS Square, who is on the fresher hard tyres, and he is quicker. But you can see Leopard, who has already pitted, he's gone from the soft to the medium, pitted very early for the mediums, is going slightly faster. But the good thing is here that now we've got to the DRS of my teammate, and you can see more and more people are starting to pit. It's starting to show where we really are in this race. So now we're going into P6 here. Now we're right behind my teammate. You can see that gap between me and Square is actually increasing at the same time as well. So it's going pretty good so far. Apart from that first few laps where there was a lot of squabbling and battling, you can see our pace is actually looking very good, as Pancakes is now pitted. And who else is out? So it's my teammate Danny and a couple of other people still remaining. So I was starting to get closer to my teammate, and now I said to myself, no, this is the point where I really need to start overtaking him. And this is why I think the hards are probably going to be a little bit quicker than the mediums here. So we're still well within this DRS zone, but thankfully he pits, so he wasn't really holding me up too much. But I think in another lap or two he would have probably started to do that. So now I'm actually in P2. Martin, who still hasn't pitted for this race, and you can see Square is 3.7 seconds by, as Sparks is on the soft tyres towards the end of the race. He's done an 8.9, so he's going to be charging through
Very hard.
very, very quickly. And Martin, I believe, is actually stayed out, so he's trying to prolong this stint as long as he possibly can. Moving on to the next lap, he now eventually pits, so we are now P1 in this race here. The gap to Square is actually going up pretty quickly, and you can see the gap to Leopard. It was 6.7, now it's 6.3. It's 4.7 to AMS Square. VRT Sparks is the one to watch here. As you can see, he made up a position on Leopard. The gap between myself and Leopard has actually stayed the same, and Square is just going up again. So we are doing a really, really good job. I felt at this stage of the race, you can see how consistent we are. Within tenths, so within 2 tenths max per lap here. And what's this lap going to be? It's going to be at a 1:09.7, so almost our PB. And that's the thing about these hard tyres. They are very, very durable, but very consistent. You actually keep on getting faster and faster these tyres, even if the wear is very, very high. As you can see, my tyre wear indicator light has already come on, which is not something you really want to see. But you can see the only person who's really catching me that quickly is Sparks. Leopard is closing in, but not as quick as I thought. So I was starting to think to myself, can we do this? Can we win with this strategy call? But you can see the tyre wear, 75%. And I just said to myself there's no way that this is going to make it to the end. So right now, I'm trying to go quickly, but also trying to be very smooth to protect the tyres as much as possible.
It's not gonna make it, unfortunately.
Because I felt like there is a chance that we could maybe win this race, because Sparks in second place has actually pitted very, very early for these soft tyres, and they go off quite a bit as well. As Martin actually retires, I thought to myself, please be a safety car. If there's a safety car, we are in such a good position here, but unfortunately it wasn't going to happen on that occasion. But Sparks now is starting to close in.
90%.
He should be getting within the DRS zone, but just to remember, these guys behind, especially Leopard and Sparks, they pitted quite early for their respectable strategy. So although I'm struggling with tyres, they are definitely going to be struggling with tyres. And I'm arguably on the more consistent tyres. So can we do this? Can we make hards last almost the entire race? With 10 laps to go, I had this tyre wear indicator. The more this went on,
I'll try.
the more I started to believe. And you can hear now, I said I'm trying here because the pace is still really good. To go to get across here again, it's a 10, I think it was a 9.9 on that lap. So the lap times are still being very consistent, and I think we're going to stay on board for the rest of this race. So Sparks now has got in this DRS zone, but we've done quite a good job at saving the ERS as well, just to use something in attack if we can. And right here now, I think it's really only Sparks, Leopard and potentially Pancakes who are the biggest threats. So we've got 4 laps to go of this race here now, and I was just thinking to myself, can we do the absolute impossible? So Sparks really is starting to close in, but we do have a lot of ERS in ammunition here, so I'm just doing my best to just try and keep it in lean in the corners, just try and protect those rear tyres as much as I possibly can, and just trying to be as smooth as possible with the wheel transition. So trying to get a really good exit off this corner. Looks like we had a pretty good one this occasion, so we're going to use a little bit of our overtaking power, but with the power of the DRS I quickly realised that there's not really too much I could do. So I was trying to really compromise his line going into his turn 1, but he tries to get back on the racing line. He should have the superior tyres right now, but trying to get a good exit. We actually do get a fairly good exit, actually, in fact, come off here now. So we're going to use most of our battery power just to see if we can catch him a little bit napping here. You can see his red light was flashing, so he is quite low on the ERS, but you could just see the traction. The softs is definitely the fastest tyre at this stage of the race. But Leopard behind actually does have a 3-second time penalty as well. So it's looking very, very good for Podium. But you can see in this middle sector, we are actually keeping with Sparks not too badly. But it's just on the traction zones is where we are really, really struggling. And I think AMS Square is a long, long way behind. I was quite surprised he wasn't able to stay with me, but I did feel I was driving extremely well on these hard tyres. Very, very fast and super consistent. So I'm just using all of my power here, and we managed to stay within the DRS zone after a lap. So can we do this? Can we actually maybe even win this race? His tyres are going to have to drop off quite a bit, but going through here now, we're still within the DRS zone. And if I could just keep on getting dragged along with him, this could really, really, really help me here. Leopard isn't able to get past until the end of this lap, most likely. So I'm just trying to minimise the amount I'm going to be on the curbs as much as I possibly can. And we have just over 2 laps of this race to go. The tyre wear indicator is going red, and I didn't think this was possible. I even thought at this stage that there was no way that we could keep going without getting a puncture, because I thought surely I would have had a puncture by now. And the thing is, on this game, a lot of people seem to think if you run on the curbs that will give you a puncture and stuff. I think there's a set minimum value where you're at risk to a puncture, and then anything over that is really just a complete gamble. Because some people have made it with like 98 or 95% tyres here. So the more this was going on, the more optimistic I was going to be, as Leopard now passes me. But I wasn't really too bothered about that because he does have the 3-second time penalty. We do have just under 2 laps of this race to go now. And I was thinking to myself, how are we still doing this? And the good thing about this DRS zone is that it is protecting me for the likes of Jam Pancakes. But we do have Ronha, who isn't too far behind. So if I can stay within the DRS zone of Leopard, like I did with Sparks, then we have a chance to even maybe still get a podium in this race here. So go through this midfield section. It doesn't seem to be too bad. The downforce was working very, very well. It does. The high downforce works actually very, very well around the track. But you can see on the traction zones, once again, it's just impossible to compete with. So coming through here now, I'm going to do my best to stay in this DRS zone. But I think with the traction off this last corner, it's going to be incredibly difficult. So I was actually pushing quite hard here, using the battery power once again. And do we do it? I think we do. I think we do have the DRS. Or actually, we don't. I thought I was just within a second, but we don't get the DRS. That's really weird, in fact, because I swear it said I was within a second. But Pancakes does pass me. Again, I wasn't really too bothered about this at the time because Leopard had a penalty. But now we have one more lap of this race to go. And we're actually on for a top 3 in this race. But as we get the DRS here and coming through it here, now we have actually got a puncture. The tyres have now eventually gone. It was the rear right tyre.
No.
And the impossible proved to be impossible. We ended up getting the puncture, which 2 times this week at Brazil, I've had a puncture. One in WR and another one here as well.
Oh, I tried.
We just tried something different, and to be honest,
I tried.
it was a lot of fun attempting to do this. But points is still not out of the question. Even if I don't have a good race, I always want to consistently be in the points here. So we're getting overtaken by Ron Ha, who I'm not sure what's happened to him there because he was in P4 or something. On going into that last lap here. But you see AOS Square, my rival, on the same strategy. He was a long way behind. So we pulled a massive gap on him. But he has those fresher tyres. That 1 lap fresher tyres that maybe we could have just maybe done that. If we did that, we might have been able to make it to the end of this race. But he does have a 3-second time penalty. So I'm trying so hard to make sure I get a point or something out of this race. And going across line, what's it going to be?
Yes! I got a point.
We still get a point in this race despite having a puncture for pretty much the end, or for that entire last lap. I hope you enjoyed this video. It was actually really fun for me to take a risk and do something different, something I don't usually do. And if I was in for the title fight, I definitely would not have done that. I would have just stayed out on the soft tyres and then gone with the mediums. But nonetheless, it was great fun. Thank you for the support of the stream. Thank you again for the support of the season, this TSRL campaign. It really does mean everything to me. And yeah, thank you so much. And I will catch you at Abu Dhabi tomorrow. Peace.